Morning.
The Columbia River Water Trail is more than just a way to get exercise. It's a way to really know this place. This is the major artery that can tell the history of our region, and every bend has a story.
Andrew Emlyn first set out on the Columbia River 20 years ago. As a naturalist, he was struck by the geology and the wildlife that he found here, and he kept coming back. In fact, he made his career as a Columbia River paddle guide.
This is about as close to a trickle as it usually gets.
Maybe it's the sheer size of the river, or the fact that it has a flow greater than any other river in the West. But the Columbia is in many ways the river everyone seems to know about, but doesn't really know. That's why Chris Hathaway helped to create the Lower Columbia River Water Trail.
For people who haven't paddled the river before, they're going to be surprised every step of the way. There's so many different things that used to be on this river that you're like, wow, what is that?
Chris and his friends have spent the last decade spreading the word about a trail that's still relatively unknown.
The Lower Columbia River Water Trail is a 146-mile trail on the Lower Columbia River from Bonneville Dam to the Pacific Ocean. It links sites in Oregon and Washington, launch and landing sites, campsites, sites of interest, historical, cultural sites. We started developing and coordinating the trail back in 2001 with the idea that the more people are out here experiencing the river, the more people are going to care about the river, want to restore and protect it.
It's a trail that moves paddlers from the heart of the gorge and into the soul of urban Portland and Vancouver, past wildlife refuges and islands, before ending with the pulsing waves and surging tides of Astoria. Now, if you're really good, you can do the trip in 7 days. But Kylene Austin says even a day trip can change your perspective.
Kayaking puts me down at river otter level. And there's a lot going on at that level. If you're higher up in a boat, you miss so much. And especially if you have a motorboat, you can't hear it. But you're silent, you're quiet when you're paddling.
Well, listen to the sound coming from it, all the echoes of the barn swallow
in
call.
there.
Oh, look at the osprey on the marker.
In just this one section of river near Skamakawa, Washington, our guides tell us that you can find over 200 species of birds.
Do you see all those turkey vultures over here, Andrew?
Some of the places we go really feel like wilderness, and really none of it is. It's this long used path of human history and commerce, and it still is. But that juxtaposition of what feels like wilderness with that long history is what makes it a fascinating place to travel.
Of course, that human history on the river didn't begin just yesterday. The trail may have a new name, but really, this is a route that's been in use for eons.
The Columbia River really is the heart of our territory. We're down at the mouth of that Columbia River, so we're big traders. You know, Chinook people were traders for thousands of years on this Columbia River. It was a highway. It was a highway going through all of our territory.
Each summer, many Native people participate in what's known as Canoe Journey. This particular canoe, pulled by the Portland All Nations Canoe family, sometimes traveled 20 to 35 miles in a day for days at a time as they made their way down the Lower Columbia.
This is a spiritual canoe journey. It is a healing journey. There are canoe pullers, the rowers on a canoe. They use this as an opportunity to connect not only with the water, but the Creator who made the water.
When you're a people that have lived in this land for thousands of years, you are that land. Canoes are at the heart of everything here. And so to be in a canoe is to reclaim your heart.
One thing that has not changed throughout time for all people on this river are the physical challenges of dealing with wind and weather and tides, on a river that's every bit as mighty as its reputation.
It's not something that you can just, oh, hey, it's sunny outside, it's calm, there's no wind, it's a beautiful day, let's get some inner tubes and go out into the shipping channel. No, you don't want to do that. Because in July, I've had it go from glass to 15-knot winds like that.
On this river, the wind and waves usually start kicking up in the afternoon, at least in the balmier days of summer. But when it happens, you can usually find camping as close as the nearest sandbar.
Yes, you're working on organizing the food, organizing the gear, organizing your plan, but you're also free. Once I'm out on the water, once I'm pitching my tent and setting camp and sitting there watching the water, watching the sunset, watching the birds is my happy place.
It's a California gull.
Are those tiny little, those are swallows?
Those are barn swallows. Oh, look at the light on Calf Willamette now.
One interesting note about these islands is that they're not really all that natural. They're essentially dredge spoils built up over the years as the channel was deepened for shipping.
You look at one of these islands created by the Corps of Engineers and think, oh, there can't be much of interest there. And then once you stop and spend a little time, there are all kinds of things.
It's free and it's easy to access. And there's no crowds. There's nobody here. And that's true for so many of these Columbia River islands.
As travelers make their way downriver towards Astoria, the trail widens and the smell of salt air greets the nostrils. And this is where things can get kind of tricky.
It's a river, but it's a tidal river. It's just like the ocean. It goes up and down, and sometimes it goes up or down 12 feet. And that makes the water move really fast in whatever direction it's going.
You can be everything from a beginner to an expert and have time out here. There's big open water areas like we see here where when the wind picks up and you're closer to the ocean and the tides are really ripping, that it's really more of expert paddling. There's backwater sloughs and areas that are really protected and good for beginners.
Steamboat Slough. This is where the steamboats used to run to get out of the weather that's on the main channel on the other side.
This is the same river we see so often from the windshield of our car traveling at 60 miles an hour. And yet, with a paddle in your hand, it becomes something much more intimate.
I have a friend who said that we live inside a watercolor, and I agree with her. It changes everywhere you look. Every time you turn, you've got a different light, you've got a different color, and you have some different kind of wildlife. And it's joyful. It was a river otter. It was about 6 feet away from me when it put its head up and looked at me. It was like, oh no, and dove back down.
As accessible as the Columbia River is to millions of people, you can often feel like the river is yours alone, which is kind of surprising considering how relaxing it can be and how connected to the human experience rivers like this have always been.
When you're a newcomer here, just remember the land that you walk on has a history. We could learn so much from knowing that history about how to care for what is our home. It's our home for all of us.